Okay, welcome everybody. I'm going to call to order the February 7th, 2024 meeting of the Auburn School Committee. Please stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're going to start with introductions down here on my right.
Dan Poisson, Ward 5.
Corin McWiggin, Ward 1.
Pam Hart, Ward 2.
Pam Albert, at large.
Connie Brown, Superintendent.
Adam Platt, City Council appointee.
Connor Dufour, Student Representative.
Jillian Dumais, Student Representative.
Mark Conrad, Business Manager.
Sue Doris, Assistant Superintendent.
And Pat Gaudier and Casey Knight could not be here tonight. So we're going to start with our consent agenda, including the approval of tonight's agenda and the approval of the minutes of the January 17th, 2024 meeting, and the approval of the contract for Megan Wood, principal at Washburn Elementary School. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second, Corin? All those in favor? Motion passes. Congratulations. Moving on to public participation. I don't know, do we have anyone here tonight who would like to address the school committee? Don't believe so. So moving on to our presentation tonight, teaching and learning positive management of student behaviors.
Thank you very much. Chairperson Albert, I'd like to ask the elementary administrators if they would come forward, please. And I think everybody knows who the folks are, but just in case the audience watching did not, we have Mr. Davis from Sherwood Heights. We have Megan Wood from Washburn Elementary. We have Mrs. Bodette from Fairview. As they get arranged, we have Mrs. Gagne from East Auburn. We have Mr. Dorr from Walton. And I think that's everybody. Well, I'm missing one. That's right. Thank you. Mrs. Maris is ill this evening and will not be able to join us. So thank you. And Mr. Davis, I think you're going to kick off the presentation.
Great. Thank you all. So we're here tonight to talk to you just briefly about how we are supporting our students' behaviors in our elementary schools, and I think you'll hear from the middle school and high school after. But we use what's called PBIS, which is Positive Behaviors, Interventions, and Supports, and it's a proactive approach to helping our students be more successful in our schools. And so it starts, and I can say all of the schools have what I'm about to say in common, and so the commonalities are the first, each of our schools have created a code, which is to be safe, responsible, respectful, and then in Washburn, they've added to be persistent. And so that is the core of our school and the actions that we take, and all of our students know our code. And so we've taken those core values, those cores, and have broken down the behaviors by areas. So students see what does it look like to be safe, responsible, and respectful in the cafeteria, the playground, the hallways, all of the areas across the building. And then really the most important piece in our approach is the explicit instruction of what that looks like, sounds like, and feels like. And it's not only something that happens at the beginning of the year, it happens throughout the year, especially around long weekends. You come back on a Tuesday and we need to remind ourselves what it looks like, sounds like, and feels like again. And so we are continually checking and adjusting. Classroom teachers do a great job of that to make sure that their students really know what the expectations are and then how to follow those expectations school-wide. Another component of our approach is that we have in every classroom on the elementary as well as school-wide an incentive program. So, some sort of a system that's in their classroom that students can be acknowledged for following those classroom expectations or hallway expectations, whether it's a code ticket or something or some tally mark that they're doing in their classroom. And then each school has their own system, which we'll find out. Mrs. Bodette will talk about the school-wide shortly. But each school also has their own approach, how to celebrate those positive behaviors school-wide. And so we can learn a little bit more about that shortly. And then something else that's a component that all of our school has is what's called check-in, check-out. And that is to support the students who need a little extra. So we know some may need a little extra prompting and reminding. Maybe they need to have a shortened schedule so they can kind of get feedback more immediately on how they're performing. And we're going to learn about that in just a moment from Mrs. Wood, who will share about how Washburn does that. But I will wrap up just this introduction with that schools also have teams that regularly meet to review student behavior data. How are they responding school-wide, classroom-wide? Where are the hot spots? What do we need to do to check and adjust at our building level and classroom level to support their behaviors? And who are the ones who maybe need a little extra? So next up is Megan Wood, who's going to be talking a little bit about the check-in, check-out system, which is, again, that extra support for those who need a little more.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. So as he said, yep, check-in, check-out is for students who need a little bit further support to meet common area expectations. We have individualized goals for students where each student might struggle with a different area to explicitly teach, but also monitor and provide feedback for students when they are having difficulties in specific areas. At Washburn, we have 2 individual teachers who support, one for grades K through 2, one for grades 3 through 6. So students who are not successful to the extent we would like them to be with these common expectations meet with these teachers at the beginning of the day and the end of the day, where they reflect on, what are our goals? How can we help you work towards meeting these goals? And provide that kind of boost that some of our kiddos might need. And the goal is to have students not need that check-in, check-out. So it's working towards, allowing and having students be successful independently. So though at Washburn, our 2 teachers meet regularly with our PBIS consultant, Jennifer Butterworth, as well to review data, as Mr. Davis described. So at Washburn, that is what check-in, check-out looks like. And now I believe Ms. Bodette will speak about whole school rewards.
So we like to create excitement and motivation. And so each school does that a little differently. At Fairview, we have what we call a blue ticket system. And so anybody can give blue tickets to students who are demonstrating the code. So bus drivers, kitchen workers, ed techs, teachers, Jimmy, anybody. And so we generate excitement. They collect the tickets. We have a clear tube in our lobby, and we fill the tickets into the tube and see, when we can fill the tube. And so if we're having difficulties in a certain area, we'll provide, we'll make a challenge for students so that they can earn 25 tickets for the whole class if they do X, Y, or Z. Or the cafeteria, for example, can be a hot spot. So when we need to do some check and adjust, we do that. Once our tube is full, we're constantly, making announcements and challenging students to fill it. Once it is filled, classrooms each brainstorm an idea of how they would like to celebrate school-wide. We put that on a piece of chart paper, not Post-it, post them in the lobby, and then each student gets a sticker dot, and they get to vote on how we will celebrate as a school. So we've done camping day. A big one is students versus staff in games. That's always fun. We've had sledding, we've had, and by day, camping day was fun. We set up a tent, we went all out. There might be pajama day, it might be games. So we create a schedule. It's not the whole day. Like we don't, they might get 30 minutes of games in the gym with against staff members, and they're thrilled. So we just like to generate the excitement and celebrate, and we do that, I'd say 1 to 2 times at least a trimester. And if we're feeling like we need a little bit more motivation or things are kind of feeling low, we do more challenges to bring up the excitement.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee for the elementary folks?
Do you find that, other than the data you're looking at, do you find that there has been improvement in the behavior and that the PBIS is actually helping with behavioral problems?
I think it brings consistency rather than everyone just doing their own thing. It's a consistent model that we all follow. So I do think that consistency does help to improve student behavior. And certainly, we have our peaks and then we have our valleys, and that's when we're checking and adjusting and our teams meet. I know at Fairview, the team meets at least a minimum of once a month, sometimes twice, depending what's going on. And, if we have hot spots, we focus on that. And then the check in, check out really allows for individual students to be successful on their own set of goals. So I do think it helps.
Yeah, and I'll just add one other thing, and that is the hard work of our classroom teachers. That really, if this first layer falls on them to really make sure that their classroom is warm and welcoming and conducive of learning, and that they're celebrating those expected and desired behaviors. So kudos to the teachers, because that's really where the success starts, their implementation.
Okay, well, thank you. If I could ask the middle and secondary folks to come on up. And I think we've got almost enough chairs. We may have to use some of the second row there. And so just for those folks who are watching at home, we have Mr. Wilson, Mr. Shabbat from Auburn Middle School. We have Ms. McLeod from Franklin. We have Greg from EL and Val. And let's see, and Elizabeth McCafferty. And then in the back row, we have Mr. Anir. Are you the, thank you. We'll bring up one more seat. And so starting with the middle level, so Mr. Wilson, if you would share with the committee what strategies you folks use for teaching and learning and managing student behavior.
This is going to sound very repetitive, but I'll start with PBIS. We have a very similar program to all the elementary schools, so when students come to us, it's a good transition. We have our core values of safe, responsible, respectful, and we've added kind. We find that kind is something that we can do projects with, and kindness is something that middle schoolers can work on. We also have Falcon tickets, and we give Falcon tickets regularly. If you come into our main office, you'll see a big glass tube that we store Falcon tickets, and we also have the little buckets, and the little buckets are daily drawings, and sometimes you can draw lunch with the principal. Sometimes you can draw a core snack or an ice cream or little trinkets. We give away water bottles with our logo, the stuff like that, office supplies, right? We have quarterly assemblies, so every quarter we get together as a 7th grade team and then as an 8th grade team, and we play a lot of games, a lot of teacher staff games. We recently did human bowling, which is a lot of fun, and if you've not come and witnessed or participated in Hungry Hungry Hippo, the live version, I suggest you come to the middle school March 14th. It's a grand time. We also give away grand prizes. So at the end of each quarter, thanks to the generosity and the work of our PTO, we do give away Kindles. So there's major prizes for kids that are school related with some digital books. It's great. We also do a tier 2 intervention, which is check in, check out. We heard a lot about that, but it's a little different than middle school. We get a mini functional behavioral assessment every time we do a check in, check out with a student. So in 5 days, we can get a determination of what time, what the behaviors are, what we need to work on, so we can adjust their plan every week. We have a social worker and an ed tech that's tied to that. So there's dedicated, I call it, there's a big blanket, right? There's a big warming blanket that helps the kids out through the school day. And that's worked very well for us. We also have block meetings, which is a staff check-in, check-out. We meet with the teams once a week, have hard conversations and phenomenal conversations based on student progress, social, emotionally, as well as academically. And then, we provide SEL and academic supports based upon that. Mrs. Britton, our guidance counselor, is a vital piece of that, along with our tier 2 people, Ms. Kaufman and Ms. Tyler. And we also do restorative practices. Now, I'm going to emphasize this, that we've only been there for 18 months. and that we're in the midst of developing the capacity to be a restorative school. And what that looks like is some teachers have taken on the training. Some teachers are doing circles with their kids. Some students are doing the restorative questions, and we have developed restorative practices as part of our discipline system, where if there's a detention, there's a restorative way to get out of it. And in suspensions, we welcome the kids back in restorative conferencing. So we're developing the capacity to put those pieces in place. So it'd probably be year 3 or year 4 before it becomes fully implemented. Along with all of this work, Mrs. Schubert's going to talk to us about responsive classroom.
Hello, yes. So responsive classroom, we started kind of dibbling in it last year, kind of gave an intro to the staff. So if you're not familiar with responsive classroom, it has been around since 1981. I've actually been a responsive classroom trainer since 2000, so I was very happy to come into the middle school, see PBIS in play, work with Ben, who has an extensive background in restorative practices. So bringing this responsive classroom piece in, to me, kind of marries all three very seamlessly. So with responsive classroom, basically, it's a student-centered approach to teaching and discipline. And it's based upon research and evidence-based practices. And so basically, what we have started with our PD, we're focusing on 4 domains in responsive classroom. The first being positive community. So one thing we have started is really strengthening our advisory. So whereas last year we only had a 10-minute basic homeroom, this year, we have that 10-minute core in the beginning of the day, but then at the end of the day, we have another 20-minute core. That way, they can acknowledge the kids, they can do their own check-in, check-out with their advisory. We've started core competitions. Every core created their core name. If you come into our cafeteria, every one of our 40 cores has a core poster, and we have core competitions. It's a lot of fun, bringing a lot of positivity in the building. We're also working with our staff with teacher language to make sure that they are talking to the kids in a very responsive, positive, calm way. So we're bringing in a lot of that PD. We're also bringing in brain breaks. So brain breaks are, little 1 to 5 minute activities that are helpful to regulate our kids. So for example, if kids are really wired, we can do a brain break to help them calm and get back to baseline. Or if the kids are falling asleep, we can do an energizer brain break to get them back to our lesson. And then finally, and we're starting to just get into this, we'll do more of it next year, but on top of the teacher language piece, we're working on logical consequences, which kind of connects with the PBIS and the restorative piece, making sure that the consequence fits the behavior and that we're focusing on fixing the behavior, not targeting the child. So that is a little bit of the work that we're doing with responsive classroom as well.
Thanks, Michelle. And before we move on, I just would like to ask Mr. Wilson to talk about the climate and culture plan you have for the whole school at a local outdoor facility, which I think is pretty cool.
Yes, we've been talking about how to get more students involved in our community, and one of the pieces that we recognize, and I think I gave Ms. Brown a wrong number today, but there's around 89 students that do all of our athletics, and there are 89 students out of 592 that participate outside of the academic realm with our clubs and our activities. So we're looking at ways of getting the middle school students to participate more in the community, and through the help of the school district and the PTO, we're looking at having our students do a day out at Lost Valley and working on core competitions with tubing and skiing and snowboarding with lessons. We're going to bring our snowshoes out there and get them a little bit wet. And we're really excited to be able to offer an opportunity for all of our students to participate in outdoor activities in winter in Auburn. It's going to be very exciting.
Thanks, Ben. Moving along. So Melissa, Franklin, please.
So at the Franklin School, the way that our program operates, excuse me, is that our behavioral expectations and all that coaching that students receive are actually part of our grading system, and they're part of our program. So if students want to continue with our program, they have to follow our Safe School Culture Agreement, which was developed when the school opened in 1978. And that says that every student and staff member at Franklin is going to keep the environment safe physically and emotionally, which I give this speech a lot to new students coming in. Most people understand that. No harassment, bullying, fighting, and that sort of thing. But then also it needs to be safe socially, which for our students could look like creating a welcoming environment for new students, not encouraging students to create cliques or create social outcasting. And then academically. And that's where it ties into our grading system, where we work with students who are often in a tough situation academically. And so we have an agreement that what they're willing to work toward, we're going to basically move heaven and earth to try to make that happen. But in return for that, they work in a way that does not compromise the academic environment for their peers. So academic safety means that everybody who's working toward a goal is able to do that without interference by others. So that's what drives all of our behavior modification, as well as any consequences come under that umbrella of our safe school culture.
Thank you. Craig, you want to talk about our freshman experience?
Yes, at Edward Little High School this year, we worked alongside our social worker, Mr. Corey Jameson. We put together a 9th grade community building project, which truly focused on social emotional learning this year. It was a 10-week program series of particular activities for the 9th grade students that worked alongside our student leadership council members, which there are 2 in the back, Mr. Connor Dufour and Ms. Jillian Dume, as well as the freshman teachers. And with that, it lasted the first semester just concluded. And why did we want to do that? Well, we put together this program to help build relationships between students and mentors over the next 4 years, and basically to enhance their sense of belonging at Edward Little High School, seeing as though Edward Little High School is a new building, it's rather large, and so on and so forth. Some of the fun activities that they did throughout the 10 weeks, they did a program or activity called Would You Rather, which helped make students feel more comfortable. I hope to break down some barriers that they may have, and hopefully as the semester and the 10 weeks progress, we progress towards more challenging events or challenging activities, which had them work together and focus in groups to get accomplish a particular goal. One example was that of Over the Line, where they had to get the entire group, led by the mentors of the Student Leadership Council members, to get over the line in sync. And they were asked to follow direction and to work together as a particular group. All activities were geared toward breaking down social barriers, social walls, and to step out of their comfort zone. One of the challenges that we faced this year was finding activities that could be done within 30 minutes, and obviously trying to engage the 9th grade students and to appeal to their liking for activities. But for the most part, it worked really, really well.
Great, thank you. Val, Elizabeth?
So we're going to talk to you a little bit about restorative conversations. These are conversations that we use with students and adults, be it teachers or parents, or between adults, where there's been conflict, a pattern of incidents where we want to try and repair what has happened during those incidents. We want to look to see and make sure that the supports are in place for healing and growth based on the incidents that we've had. So really, within this process, it's a process where we follow a very strict procedure. It has a series of questions that we ask both participants or more participants if it becomes a circle. And we talk about their version of what happened. We give each person the time and space to do that. We talk about how it's affected them or other people that are outside of the particular incident. And what the hardest part is. And then from there, we become solution focused in terms of what are the needs to make things right, and a possible solution for long term to ensure that the incident won't occur again. The biggest piece to this restorative conversation is making sure there's an agreement between those that are participating in the conversation, because we cannot repair and find solutions if the participants are not both willing to come to the table in the first place. So we go through this process, we share the questions with them, and then we bring everyone to the table, and we will mediate those conversations as administrators. We often bring in Corey Jameson as a social worker, as he's trained in restorative conversations, and he will help guide through that. One particular example this year was I saw a pattern of behavior with a student, and it didn't have to do with anyone in the building, be it student or teacher. It actually had to do with the parent and a conflict the student was having with the parent. So we brought the parent in, through agreement with the student to have that conversation, and Corey Jameson was able to mediate the conversation between the student and the parent, and then we saw an improvement in the behavior in the building. So the restorative process is a really strong process, very strict protocol, and we're able to, find that solution for the students and the adults.
Thanks, Val. And Scott, I think you are the cleanup hitter.
Yes, I am. Thank you. So much of what we do is built out of our student handbook and with the expectations that happen in classrooms. The teachers begin their school year talking about their code of cooperation. And a lot of that is really based on the core tenets that we as a school district embody. And from there, it moves itself into talking about daily norms, whether it be needing a pass, how we're going to go about turning in homework, those sorts of operational things. But the things that we get to do, the fun stuff to celebrate kids, which I think is really important to highlight. Of course, we have Spirit Week and we have Winter Carnival, but some areas that we've really grown in is our morning announcements, is celebrating students in the morning about accomplishments from the night before. And that may seem like it's small potatoes, but it really is a big deal, and it helps kids know who each other is, and they kind of look forward to that. And another one that we do is we select 2 to 3 students from each grade level as Student of the Month, and that is chosen by the staff who nominate them. And what's really awesome about our new building is that we have the video signboards throughout, and so that plays on a loop all month long. So those are some key areas that we do to take the positive approach. Too often we get seen as just having to do the negative pieces. And when we are having to change behavior, consequences are a tool to the process, but when we're doing change behavior, these folks over here, it's a huge shout out to them. They are all about process and partnering. Process the situation and partner with the student and the teacher, the student and the family. Student to student is core at all of it. So those are some big pieces. In terms of knowing the expectations of schools, we get the benefit of having students who have come up through, who have learned many of those pieces from elementary and middle school. So when they come to us, really we begin the start of the school year, as I said, with that code of cooperation in the classroom. But also we have meetings with 9th graders, 10, 11, and 12, just to let them know what the points of emphasis are, particularly for that grade level. And that has worked well for us. And then as the years go on, we have to check and adjust and offer greater insights.
Great, thank you. Questions from the school committee?
I had a question. I was curious if at any grade levels, I guess any grade levels, but particularly 7 to 12, is peer mediation still present? Is that something that exists anymore?
I think
You're right, and we had the vehicle to be able to do that, and we had the trainers to be able to do that. I think we've kind of taken the approach with, as Ms. Ackley was sharing, the restorative pieces. We've kind of driven it that way. There was a time when we had the mock trial and the debate folks that had a hand in that. Since then, we've kind of moved that away. It's just created greater ownership by having the adult drive it. If we can get to a place where student to student can operate it, that would be fabulous.
I know at the middle level, the end goal with restorative practices is to be able to have students do the peer work themselves with a facilitator that's an adult, and that the students should be able to ask those questions and do the work with each other. But we're just novice at this right now. We're going to get there.
Anybody else?
So the freshman program that you spoke of, this is its second year that you guys have been doing that freshman program, correct?
Yes.
And do you find that now that you've had a year under your belt, do you find that it's helped and made the students feel like they're part of the community?
Yes, and I believe the incidences have gone down.
I personally think it's a great program.
Well, great. Thank you all very, very much. I hope this was helpful to the committee to talk about some of the policies that we have in place to help teach and learn our student behavior.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Moving on to our school committee student representatives report. Do we have one tonight?
Exciting news on the athletic side for Yale. In wrestling, Cooper Blair was the KVAC runner-up in the 113-pound weight group. Evan Madigan was KVAC champion in the 126-pound weight group. And Coach Ben Madigan was named KVAC Coach of the Year. Last night in Yale boys hockey, they were able to make a comeback win with a 4-3 win last night against the Ice Cats.
Thank you, Jillian. Superintendent's report, Dr. Brown.
Thank you very much. We are about to enter everyone's favorite time of the year, budget season. Here we go. And I want to say at the outset of this, one of the folks that needs the accolades publicly is our business manager, Mr. Conrad, who has put in untold hours to get this ready. And he helps me untangle the whole thing, and then he explains it again, hours, to say this is how it really should go, Connie. So kudos to you, Mark, because you're really the key to all of this. So nonetheless, so this is the process going forward. Just a reminder that beginning the 28th, and that meeting is at the end of February, and it's off cycle because ordinarily we do the 1st and 3rd, but in February, because of vacation, we do the 1st and 4th. So tonight is the 1st, and the 4th is the 28th. So that will kick off our budget season, and I don't need to read to you what each of the presentations are, but I do want it noted for the community and the committee that these are the things you can expect for each of those nights. And you can have a look at what they will do. The schedule follows the cost centers as proposed in the budget. I think most all of you have been through a budget at one point in time. We go through each cost center. The administrators present either their school budget or, as in the case of, say, special ed, the special education budget, and you will see how those meetings flow. And for Councilmember Platts, will be at your place on April 1st with a meeting with the City Council, and that will also be a meeting where we will discuss the capital improvement project and what projects will go forward as part of that process. Any questions about the budget process? You will get, as promised, I don't know, what is it, 10, 15-pound budget notebook that we present. We're a little old school that way. But I wouldn't want to go out without my final year being the same 15-pound budget book with the flip pages. So anyway, that's what you got. We will take questions as part of the budget process. We record those, and then we give the information both to you at the next meeting or we put it on the budget on our budget website so that all the public can see what has been asked, what has been answered, and what is out there. And then there's a lot of opportunity for the committee as part of this process and asking questions. We always appreciate questions in advance. That helps us to prepare and get you a more thorough answer. If we don't know the answer that evening, we will get it to you. But that is what the process looks like here. I didn't include the end dates, and essentially in May, there will be an occasion for the committee to actually vote on what budget will go to the council, and then it will go to the council for its consideration. And then in June, it goes to the voters for the BVR, which is the budget validation referendum. And that's where the whole community will vote on the Auburn School Department budget, up or down. We've been very lucky, and I credit that with the good work that's done ahead of budget development with our community and taxpayers, because we've had overwhelming support for the Auburn School Department budget. That's not the case in every community. Some communities have had to go back to their budgets or their communities several times, so that hasn't happened here. And again, I think that's because of the transparency, the accountability, and the really good communication that we have around this topic. I would ask at this point if Ben, I think you brought a friend with you to come and talk about Alice. And just as a reminder,
Chris, come on.
last fall, the Auburn School Committee approved the Alice program to be implemented with staff training this year. And we think it's important that we come back and touch base with you on what we've done with that initiative. There was a timeline in your packet. And Ben, if you could speak to the January 22nd workshop that we have just done, as well as the training conducted last fall.
Yeah, so, regrettably, the training happened around the same time as the incidents happening in Lewiston. And the first day of training was the bookwork. We got very studious about it. And that night, Our scanners were going off, and it was all over the news. And our trainers at that time were remarked that, this is the first time they're doing, this training during a live event. And it really brought home the seriousness of it. Each one of us who participated in the training, came back with a little more gusto, because I think it really kind of sat home the idea that this is something that we need in our district, and that it's really supportive. So on October 25th, 9 staff and several of the Auburn Police Department were trained in Alice. Alice's alert lockdown. It is also inform, counter, and evacuate. Alice is a response to when we have a violent critical incident in a school. It replaces our old red lockdown, which is the locks the lights out of sight, right? We're no longer going to be hiding in the back of the room. On January 22nd, all Auburn staff had the first part of 2 trainings, which was the education piece. In March, we are planning to do the second piece, which is the scenario training, where we practice the things that we have learned. And Mr. Hughes can talk about this in a second, but I think for us, and for me specifically, it was the scenario training that kind of developed the confidence to be able to make a decision during intense moments like a violent critical incident. You hold it.
Gotta hold it. All right, cool. Yeah, so the traditional lockdown, hide in the corner, shut the lights off, that was pretty much invented in the 1970s. And we've kind of followed that practice here since I've been here for 20 years, because that's what we've known. The scenarios that we're going to do, we'll practice, obviously, locking down, barricading, and then countering an escape if we can. So Alice is more of like an options-based strategy. It's not just sit in the corner and hide. You can escape, counter, barricade, or lock down. So that's where we're at with that.
And we hope to be able to fully implement this for the 24-25 school year. To fully implement, we will train students as well, and appropriate responses depending on age groups. And as we complete our trainings, we'll be offering communication and some trainings with the community as well. Again, we feel, the staff feels, and everyone, the trainings went very well. I don't think we had a negative response to any of the trainings. The staff have been kind of looking for an alternative to just, being in the corner of a classroom. And this gives, an advanced version of a lockdown. It gives permission to make a choice when choices are offered. And it also helps us, I think, communicate more throughout these incidences that, we'll be able to, keep our students and our staff safe. So.
Great. Thank you. Any questions for our team of Alice trainers?
I think it's sad that we have to do this. Like you said, Chris, we've had this other method of just get in the corner and hide for 20 years because we've never really needed to have anything like Alice. And being a first responder on October 25th is something that I will never forget. And having anything that we can protect our kids, I think it's a great idea. I also am compassionate for the people that are learning this, teachers, people that, they're not people that thought they would ever have to deal with this. I don't think any of us were. So I applaud you for doing what you're doing, and I hope it does help.
Thank you to you both for stepping up to be the trainers.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on to school committee chairperson's report. So I have an update regarding our superintendent search. We have finalized and filled out our superintendent search committee, and that is linked on the agenda, all of the members of the committee. We have 3 school committee members, 3 administrators, 3 staff, and 3 community members. And we all met for the first time as a group last week, did some training, some MSMA training, and we have been in the process of reviewing candidate applications. And then also moving on to, so for the City of Auburn, there's an ethics committee, and the school committee appoints a representative for the ethics committee, and we actually need to appoint an alternate for the ethics committee. So I am putting it out to all of the members of the school committee that if you know of anyone who might be interested in being an alternate for the ethics committee as our school representative, the duties of the ethics committee is the ethics panel has the authority to issue advisory opinions on questions relating to conflicts of interest and the incompatibility of employment positions. And alternate members of the ethics panel may participate and vote in ethics panel proceedings if a regular voting member is incapable or unavailable to serve. And I think the meetings are just kind of as necessary, so I don't think it's a set schedule. So if you know of anyone who might be interested in participating on that, please let me know. Okay, so moving on to city council update. Adam, do we have a city council update?
I do. Brief, but just update on the goings-ons of City Council. On Saturday, City Council had its goals retreat. So we spent the better part of the day here in Auburn City Hall defining kind of our goals and strategies for what we hope to accomplish in the next 2 years. My understanding is that that will formulate itself out into a document that we'll further vote on at a City Council meeting, but that will be available for people to see. Not a ton of direct connections to what we do here in the school committee, but certainly lots of indirect connections as far as what was being talked about. I guess just one thing I wanted to bring up, a focus, I think, of the council in this term is going to be dealing with the unhoused populations, and that's going to be a focal point, I think, as they kind of work out all of the different values and goals. I believe that'll be a priority. And one thing that came up a few times from a few counselors was just the need to also prioritize unhoused students. And I think, I'm new to this school committee, but I think it's obviously something that you guys probably all know about, and it's something that's out there. And obviously we want to prioritize unhoused populations, but more so we want to prioritize young folks who are unhoused, because you really can't get anything done if you don't have a roof over your head. So that was something that came up. No action on it right now, but just something worth saying. Also updates, not necessarily related to the school committee, but the appointment committee met yesterday and approved vacancies for the sewer, parks and rec, water district, planning board. So just some housekeeping there. And the next city council meeting will be Monday, February 20th, I believe.
Great, thank you. In terms of committee reports, I think we have had a policy subcommittee meeting. The minutes and agenda are linked. We've also, the curriculum subcommittee meeting that was supposed to happen today had to be postponed. And there was the first health and safety subcommittee met on this past Monday. Does anyone want to give updates about any of that? No, okay. And then also we had our first facilities subcommittee meeting this afternoon. Moving on to new business. Can I entertain a motion to approve policy AUB-BEDH, public comment at school committee meetings for a first reading? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Corin. Any comments, debate, or questions, discussion about that policy? Seeing none. All those in favor? All right. Moving on to motion to approve policy AUB-FA, facilities development goals, priority objectives for a first reading. Do I have a motion?
So,
Corin.
Second.
Pam. Any comments, debate, questions? All those in favor? So moved. On to motion to approve policy AUB-FF, naming of facilities and grounds for a first reading. Do I have a motion? Corin?
Second.
Anyone? Oh, Dan. Okay, sorry, I didn't hear you, Dan. Any comments, debate, questions?
I just have one comment.
Yep.
It's probably good that I'm on the policy committee now, so I don't have to make so many comments. But I will say, the naming of facilities and grounds, one of the things that did come up with the committee was the high school and how we have a naming policy already as far as the new high school. and that this is a policy that we're having, but we also have that other policy too, that if people wanted to name the stadium or things like that, that we have that set in motion as well, separately.
Is that a policy that needs to be cross-referenced with this policy or not? No? Okay. Any other comments, questions? All those in favor? All right. Moving on to a motion to approve policy AUB FFA memorials for first reading. Do I have a motion? Corin,
Second.
a second? Dan? Any comments, questions on this one? No? All right. All those in favor? All right. Moving on, motion to approve the Auburn School Committee goals for a first reading. The goals are linked on our agenda. This was a result of our workshop on January 17th, I think? No.
Yes.
Yes, I think so.
Yes, it was.
January 17th, where we met and revised and discussed our school committee goals for the coming term. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And a second? Any comments, questions, debate? All those in favor? All right. All of our upcoming meetings are listed on the agenda. Our next school committee meeting will be on the 27th, so the fourth Wednesday of this month. Oh, it says the 27th on our, oh, that's policy, sorry, 28th. Policy subcommittee on the 27th. Yes, next meeting, which will be a budget meeting on the 28th. And any requests for future agenda items or requests for information? None? Okay. At this time, I'm going to entertain a motion to enter into an executive session pursuant to 1 MRSRA 4056D for the purpose of labor contract negotiations between the Auburn School Committee and the Auburn Education Association. Do I have a motion?
Second.
And do I have a second, Pam? All those in favor? All right. Thank you, everyone.